In this video lecture, we will discuss about mycorrhizae. The word myco, which means fungus, and the word rhizae, which means root. So, in the simple word, we can say that mycorrhizae, which means it is a symbiotic associations between fungus and plant root, or we can say that it is an interaction between fungi and plant root. First, we will see introduction. The symbiotic associations between fungi and root system of higher plant come under the general name that is mycorrhiza. It is an symbiotic association between fungi and plant root that is known as mycorrhiza, which literally means fungus root, or in the another word we can say that fungus root. Fungus roots were discovered by German botanist, that name is Frank, in the year 1855. Forest trees such as pine. In the pine tree, it was the first discovered by the German botanist name that is Frank. The mycorrhizal association involved the integration of plant roots and fungal mycelia. That is, an associations that involvement of the integration of plants roots and the fungal mycelia. The mycorrhizal association carried out a physiological function that leads to the nutrient exchange favorable to both the partners. There is a kind of mutual associations between the fungi and the plant's roots. They both, one way or the another way, they both help each other. That is favorable to the both the partners, fungi as well as the plant root. Enhance uptake of waters and minerals, nutrients, particularly phosphorus and nutrient. There are 4 types of mycorrhizal association. In that we will study Ectomycorrhiza, Endomycorrhiza, and the third type, that is Ectomycorrhiza, and the fourth, that is VA mycorrhiza. VA mycorrhiza, which means vesicular arbuscular mycorrhiza. There are 4 types of mycorrhizal associations. According to the partner of interaction, there are 4 types of mycorrhiza, that is Ectomycorrhiza, Endomycorrhiza, that both this thing that we will study in this video lecture in a detail, and the third type, that is Ectomycorrhiza, which means that it is a combination of ecto and endo. Ectomycorrhiza, it is a combination of Ectomycorrhiza and Endomycorrhiza, and the fourth type, that is VA mycorrhiza, that is vesicular arbuscular mycorrhiza. Before we go into the detail, first of all we should know about the structure of root. Structure of root, that is mainly consists of, this is epidermis, then there is this is cortex, then there is endodermis, then there is pericycle, then there is xylem, then there is phloem, xylem that help in the water transport, phloem that help to store the food. This is the basic structure of root, the structure of root that we have to remember in this. Here it is epidermis layer, then there is the cortex, then after there is an endodermis, then after there is a pericycle, then here is the xylem, phloem. First we will study Ectomycorrhiza. Ectomycorrhiza, it is an intercellular interaction, whereas Endomycorrhiza, it has intracellular interaction. Ectomycorrhiza that are commonly in gymnosperm and angiosperm, including oak, beech, coniferous tree, that are most common in gymnosperm and angiosperm. Ectomycorrhiza. Many fungi can enter into Ectomycorrhizal association, including Ascomycetes and Basidiomycetes. These are the group of fungi, that is the Ascomycetes and Basidiomycetes. Ascomycetes such as truffles, Basidiomycetes such as Boletus and Amanita. Ectomycorrhizal fungi that do not penetrate host cell wall, instead it penetrates between the space of epidermal and cortex cell. The things that we have to remember for the Ectomycorrhiza, that it will not penetrate the host cell wall, instead it will penetrate between the space of epidermal and the cortex. As we know that the plant root, here that is the this is the layer of epidermis, then there is the cortex. It will not penetrate in the cell wall, but that will penetrate between the space. From here it will penetrate, this is the epidermis, this is the cortex. From like here it will penetrate. Fungus root will penetrate like this way. And Ectomycorrhizal's roots, that is devoid of root hair. Ectomycorrhizal's roots that have the lack of root hair, and it is covered by the fungal hyphae. The layer or a sheath almost look like host tissue. Example, that is parenchymatous. This layer is known as pseudoparenchymatous sheath. Simply, as we know that Ectomycorrhizae that do not have the root hair, that type of that having the lack of the root hair, but they shows the like this way. This is the cortex. It will penetrate between the space of epidermis and the cortex, and it will form a structure like this. This is known as pseudoparenchymatous sheath-like structure it will form. Pseudoparenchymatous, it is a thin cell layer that is made by the fungi hyphae, that is made by the fungi hyphae that form the pseudo, means false. Pseudo because the layer that is formed by the fungal hyphae, not by the root cell. The root cell have not any kind of root hair, they have the lack of the root hair, but here the pseudo because the layer is formed by the fungal hyphae, not by the root cell. From this sheath, fungal hyphae that will penetrate or enter in between the epidermal and the cortex cell, and it will form the network like hyphae. It will form the network like this. Wherever there is a space, it will form the network like hyphae, that is known as Hartig net. It was named after the German botanist Hartig. The things that we have to remember for the Endomycorrhiza, that is the root hair, The structure of root. This consists of epidermis. This is the epidermis and this is cortex. The root hair is absent. So the fungal mycelia will penetrate from the space between and it will form the network-like structure that is known as hartignate. And it also forms a sheath-like structure that is known as pseudoparenchymatous sheath. Cultural characteristic of ectomycorrhizal fungi. Here we will see what are the cultural characteristics of ectomycorrhizal fungi. Ectomycorrhizal fungi have optimum growth temperature that is around 15 to 30 degrees Celsius and optimum pH that is around 4 to 6 or acidic or as low as 6. This is what a cultural characteristic if you want to culture this Ectomycorrhiza fungi in laboratory. So these are the some optimum growth temperature and the pH. Most mycorrhizal fungi grow well on a simple carbohydrates and sugar alcohols. They generally utilize nitrogen, amino acid, ammonium, salt. Many fungi that require vitamin like thiamine and biotin, these all are required. Fungi are able to produce variety of metabolites that they release to the plant including oxygen, gibberellin, vitamin, antibiotic and fatty acids. Absorption of nutrient. What kind of nutrient that fungus that will help to absorb the nutrient and that will give it to the partner that is plant root. Plant in association with fungi shows several benefits. There are the several benefits. There is the association of between the plant's roots and the fungi. Increase the rate of nutrient absorption from the soil. If there is an association between the fungi and the plant's roots, so it will shows the increased rate of nutrient absorption from the soil. Selective absorptions of iron, resistance to the plant pathogens. Plants will get resistance towards the pathogens that shows the increased tolerance range. Ectomycorrhizal roots take up nutrient and ions. Phosphate accumulation or phosphate accumulated in sheath and transferred to the plant root. Nitrogen containing compound and calcium also been found in sheath then transfer into the plant root. That sheath, that is parenchymatous sheath, that will form first, there will be the accumulation inside the sheath and then it will from the sheath it will transfer to the plant root. What kind of resistance to the plant disease that shows? Plant with Ectomycorrhiza are able to resist to the pathogens that plant that having the symbiotic association between the fungi and the root, that is Ectomycorrhiza fungi, Ectomycorrhiza that shows the resistance towards the pathogens. The sheath layer work as a physical barrier that will sheath layer whatever that has been formed that will shows or we can say that work as a physical barrier. Many Basidiomycetes that produce the antibiotic, Ectomycorrhizal root also produced a variety of volatile organic acids that have fungi static effect, that shows the fungi static effect. Now the second type of interaction. According to the partner of interaction, we have seen the 4 different types of mycorrhiza. Ectomycorrhiza, second that is Endomycorrhiza. In this we will see Endomycorrhiza, Endomycorrhiza in which fungal hyphae penetrate within the plant root cells, whereas Ectomycorrhiza they cannot penetrate inside the root cells but it will penetrate towards the space between the epidermis and the cortex, whereas Endomycorrhiza can penetrate inside the plant root cells. Fungi involved in associations belongs to either Basidiomycetes or fungi imperfection, that is Deuteromycetes. In Endomycorrhiza, we will study Endomycorrhiza in orchids. Orchid, it is a plant. All orchid have Endomycorrhiza. Few species of orchid that will grow without a fungal partner, without the association with fungi. Example, that is Listeria, epipactus plants that shows without the partner of the, they will grow without the partner of the fungal. Other species of orchid that entirely they depend on the fungal partner, example that is vanilla and gastrites. Orchid seeds are very small, so contain little nutrient reserves. Orchid, the seed of orchid, the plant itself, it is a very long plant, but the orchid seed that is very small, very little, very small, due to the small size of the orchid seed, contain little nutrient reserves in it. So, seed germination and the plant growing, it required to association that with fungi. Due to the very small size and having the, that will contain itself a very small amount of the nutrient reserve in it, so for the germination of the plant growth, that's required some kind of associations with the fungi. Due to orchid seeds germinate, seeds are infected by fungal hyphae from the soil. The seed of orchid that shows the symbiotic association between with the fungal hyphae. In that, for your simplicity, as we know that this is the epidermis, then there is the cortex, it will penetrate inside the root hair cells and it will form like this. This is a coil-like structure we can say, that is known as palaton, the things that we have to remember. Due to the orchid seeds germinates, seeds are infected by the fungal hyphae from the soil. From the soil, the fungal hyphae that will penetrate inside the root hair, inside the root cell. Fungal hyphae form the coil-like structure within the cortex. Within this cortex, it will, inside the cortex, this is the cortex. Inside the cortex, it will form the coil-like structure that result in swell. Ultimately, it will swell and disorganization of cell. This coil form known as palaton. This coil structure that has been found inside the cortex, that is known as palaton. After few weeks, coil structure of hyphae, after some days or weeks, the coil structure of hyphae, that is the fungal hyphae, get disintegrated within the cell. That will get disintegrated within the cells and that will be digested by the plant host cells. Itself the plant's root cells that will digest after few weeks later. Fungal hyphae, that is a coil structure that will get disintegrated, that will be digested by the plant cell. The things that we have to remember in this video lecture, that is Endomycorrhiza, that shows the symbiotic associations between the fungi and the plant roots. In that, there are the 4 types of interaction according to the partners that we have studied, that is Endomycorrhiza and Ectomycorrhiza and Endomycorrhiza in detail, and the other that is Ectomycorrhiza and VA mycorrhiza. VA mycorrhiza, which means vesicular arbuscular mycorrhiza. Endomycorrhiza, that shows the intercellular interaction. Endomycorrhiza, it shows intracellular interaction. In Ectomycorrhiza, hartignate net-like structure that is being found, whereas Endomycorrhiza, hartignate net-like structure is not found. Sheath that is found in Ectomycorrhiza, whereas Endomycorrhiza, sheath is not found. In Ectomycorrhiza, root hair is absent in Ectomycorrhiza, whereas in Endomycorrhiza, root hair is present. Whereas in Ectomycorrhiza, cell do not contain coiled hyphae inside the cell, whereas Endomycorrhiza, coiled hyphae that is found. These are the things that we have to remember.